The function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Leaders of men.
Welcome to Leaders of Men. I'm your host, Nick Warner. In a society that yearns for legitimate male role models, I speak to men that are forging the pathway to a healthy, integrated masculinity. This week's episode is with the uncivilized man himself, Traver Boehm. Traver is the author of the book Man Uncivilized, the founder of the Uncivilized movement and Uncivilized Nation. His mission is to change the way 1 million men express their masculinity by combining primal savagery with deep consciousness. Traver's love language is pull-ups. I hope you enjoy. Traver Boehm, thank you for joining me. This is quite something I've been looking forward to, so it's beautiful to have you on.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for inviting me into this space.
Absolutely. Let's jump straight in. What does masculinity mean to you?
Ooh. Masculinity to me is an energetic expression. It is a way that people, primarily men, live, exist, and I'm going to go back to that word over and over, express themselves in the world. And that is the tip of the iceberg. And there is, 10 miles underneath that of nuance and flavor and depth. But to me, it's simply that it is someone, and I'm going to say primarily, it is how a man expresses the core expression of being a man before he gets to all of his individual flavors. It's just that core expression of a man.
And what is that core expression?
To me, it comes down, and I have a little bit of a unique view. It's a blend of the primal and a blend of the divine. So there's this knowing that a man will go out and get, a man will stay home and protect, a man will provide, a man will create, a man will build. A man will create, will bring order and structure to chaos. And then a man will have a deep sense and a deep feeling. Masculinity provides a deep, like a backdrop of space holding for the world and for emotion and for nature. So that's how I view the combination, right? And I know this is a little bit of broad stroke terms, but it's that primal, like, okay, I need to be in nature. I am part of nature. I am part of the flow of nature. I have these archetypes. I have the hunter in me. I have the builder. I have the protector. On top of, obviously, there's infinitely more, but that's in all men. And then the capacity to hold for the deepest of emotion, the deepest of feminine expression, the deepest of chaos, and the deepest of understanding that he is part of something that is so much vaster and more mysterious than himself than he'll never know, but he has the capacity to hold for that.
That was the answer I was trying to pull out here.
Thank you.
If you had a 12-year-old son, what is the most significant thing he needs to know?
One, actually the most significant, and we're going to say that he's, heteronormative and is identifying as a male, is that he is going to grow into something that he's not yet. And that job, that archetype, that expression, that being is going to have a certain set of qualities, a certain set of responsibilities that he is going to have to embody. And when he does, his life and everyone around him will be vastly safer, and they will be able to relax into who they are, and his life will be infinitely, I don't want to say easier, but smoother, because he's been initiated into and having this explained, Nick, right? I want him to know that manhood is a thing. Manhood it's a job, but it's more than that. It's an embodiment. It is a way of living in the world. And he can choose to ignore it. He can choose to deny it, or he can choose to embrace it. And if he chooses to embrace it, everything about his life will be different. It will be more potent. It'll be more powerful. It'll be more beautiful. It'll be healthier. And I'm going to go back to the word I used before. He will be safer, and all people around him will as well. And I'll be like, you know what? For your 20s, don't take shit too seriously. Surf as much as you can. Don't worry about making money. Figure out what you love. Create art. Be really nice to people, and dive into understanding the feminine. Like, study this. Educate yourself about this. Disconnect from collective culture and dive into the classics about this is what masculine energy is. This is what feminine energy is. Learn to surf, learn jujitsu. If you can figure out the guitar, that trifecta will make a lot of your life really, really amazing. Learn to cook. Yeah, there's another one.
And learn how to change a tire.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your deepest desire?
For me, it's impact, Nick. It's like there's nothing that turns me on in the world more than impact, creating impact. And the dovetail of that is if that impact has anything to do with the alleviation of suffering, then I am lit the fuck up. I have dedicated my entire life to creating impact that alleviates suffering. Sometimes at my own peril, like I'll drive 24 hours to teach free at a workshop because I know the people there need to hear what I have to say. And more so that I know they need to hear what I have to say, they will then shift their behavior. They will have their hearts lightened. They will have pain released. And then they will go back into their own communities as vastly different people. So those two things just play with me and drive me and inspire me and eat at me, and impact and the alleviation of suffering. Those are my jams.
What is an uncomfortable truth about you?
That it took me 40 years to wake the fuck up. Like 40 years that I still battle a bit with. All of this information was out there. All of this understanding was out there, and I was just so blind to it. I even had it introduced to me and I was like, yeah, this is dumb. I don't need this. Right? I think that is, it's not shame at this point. It was shame when I realized it. Like, wow, I'm a blind man in the world and I've caused so much harm and hurt and destruction simply by being unconscious. And so, yeah, that I wish it was like at 16, I woke up or 15 or 14, I often rage about the Pythagorean theorem. I don't know if they teach that where you are, but remember A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Yeah. I've never used that in my entire life. And so I wish that for that class in junior high, they were like, hey, we're just going to stop geometry right now. This is what the masculine means. This is what space holding means. This is what communication means. This is the actual definition of intimacy. This is what's going on in the world. Cool. Now, if you need to make a triangle, like figure that shit out on your own. All right, go run along. Go be amazing.
I came out of a retreat. You did your dark retreat at Lake Atitlan, yeah?
Yeah.
So I did the same one, but only for 11 days. But I came out of that retreat and there was a kid there. So I was 34 when I did that. And there was a kid in this ashram who was 19. And he'd spent periods of time in silence, and he'd spent periods of time just like properly dedicated to going inwards and healing himself. Imagine.
When was that, Nick?
5 years ago.
Was it Dylan Lyon?
Australian guy?
No, American guy. I was there. There's a really young guy there who's now doing just phenomenal things in the world with psychedelics, with peace, with like community building. But yeah, I remember sitting there and being like, oh, At your age, I was, a freshman in college, and I didn't know my ass from my elbow. And yeah, I was completely lost. So yeah, how profound. I had no idea you did the dark retreat. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the most beautiful things is like these guys that are in this work now are, 30s and 40s and 50s, but there are generations of kids who are teenagers and they're getting into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a real beautiful shift that is happening.
Yeah.
What is your most profound pain in this moment?
Nick, I don't have a connection to my biological family. And it's not for any particular reason. It's not like there was the event, the thing that happened that split the family apart. And so that's been true for me for almost 30 years. And a week or so ago, I went and saw my parents for the first time in maybe 5-6 years. And I had a profound missing of my father. And to see him at an age where he's significantly declined. He was the most brilliant man I've ever met. He's an actual genius. And yet to see where he is just health-wise and cognitively was just absolutely brutal. And I still carry a bit of that pain with me this morning.
Thanks for sharing that. When was the last time you were out of integrity?
Ooh. God, I'll say this morning. Right. I had this, and I'll just be so blatantly honest that a week ago was like, okay, social media, we don't need to get on that before like 10 o'clock in the morning. We know this. Every study, like I preach this, I've watched The Social Network. And yet this morning I woke up at like 5:12 and was just lying in bed and was like, I wonder what's on Instagram. And it was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know this. We have the Post-it note that says like, no social media. We have the people that are like, don't do it. And then it was just like, boop. Oh, wow. Look what all these other people are doing this morning. And it drives me insane that it feels like something so simple, like just don't do it. But man, that pull of like, I was alone. It was early. I was lonely. I was like, I didn't want to get out of bed yet. I didn't want to start the machine. And so it was just a little bit of entertainment and mind numbing and, yeah. So it's 8:46 this morning. So right now, 3.5 hours ago, I was out of integrity.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I had a similar thing this morning. I woke up and went to the bathroom. On the way, I picked up the phone and my partner's just looked at me. She's like, no, not for an hour.
Right? It's a real thing, man. It's a real thing. I have a mentor who was a Green Beret for 20 years, like led high-level missions all through Afghanistan, was so integral in bringing tribes together, has written multiple books, multiple TED Talks, charges like $2,500 an hour to consult, has created his own one-man play that he took all over the country. And I was at a workshop with him and he was leading and he's like, we're talking about resistance, that when you want to do something, there's a force that's created to go against you. And he's like, you guys want to know what resistance looks like for me? And I was like, this is going to be massive, right? This has got to be some huge thing. And the guy, he just like put his head down and he goes, Facebook. My wife will come into the garage and catch me on Facebook. And she will take my phone out of my hand and be like, you're not supposed to be doing this, are you? And he looked like a little 12-year-old boy. This is a man who's done so much extraordinary things with his life. And I just sat there and was like, I feel you, brother. I feel you. It's real. Right? It's not always the bomb that's that's derailing our lives, or I'm not out of integrity because, oh my God, I'm cheating on my wife, or I'm using cocaine and nobody knows it. It's just the little things. It's like the death by 1,000 cuts. And damn, social media is a beast. And I'm so glad your partner called you on it too. I love They're like, oh.
No, I had this rule for a while. You just sleep with the phone out of the bedroom. And you wake up and there's no phone. It's easy. And for some fucking reason, the phone has just found its way back. I use the excuse of it's my alarm clock. You gotta watch. Or set the alarm outside of the bedroom.
Yeah. I thought about that last night when I put it down, plugged in. I was like, wow, I wonder how many people sleep next to their phones. Guilty. Yep.
What are you most afraid of?
Ooh. Have you ever seen the movie A Bronx Tale with Robert De Niro? There's a line in it. He said, there's nothing worse than wasted potential. And so I think that's the thing I'm most afraid of, is that I'm going to get to the end of my life and look back and go, man, I could have done so much more. And logically, I know at this point, I've written 2 books, I've done talks, I've started a movement, I've shifted a number of people's lives, but yet that's still the driving fear that I could have done more. And that's, I think, a daily battle between satisfaction and this drive that says you're just the tiniest fish in the biggest pond, and there's so many people who are waking up this morning and they're either going to look for your information or they're going to look for a gun. And if you had written something more powerful yesterday, maybe they would have found it. And that's the thing that eats at me, Nick.
Yeah, it's a common one for men, isn't it? That the fear of not fully reaching your potential. But then, how do you know?
I feel and it, cognitively, I also know, and I've told this to other men, like, you will reach more of your potential if you take a rest day. We know this about exercise. I'm not going to, okay, if I lift weights 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm not going to get my strongest. I'm going to get my sickest. But yet there's a part of us that a part of me, I'll just speak for myself, that just isn't that comfortable with downtime and feels like I should be doing more. And, the first 3 days of any vacation I take are miserable. I'm like, I don't want to, this is a way, I don't really like this. And then it's like, kapoof, flat out on the bed, like, oh my God, we so needed this. Just have to get through that 72 hours of self-induced guilt.
Now I know the answer to this one. What is it you are creating?
I'm building a movement of 1 million men who express their masculinity through the primal and divine. And the goal of that is to shift culture, is to shift the options, the opportunities, and the perceptions that men have, so that they tap back into that primal part of them and are not apologetic for being born in a male body, yet realize that the responsibility of being in a male body comes with so much necessity for consciousness that they're willing to take that dive as well. And therefore they walk around with both. They have the primal, they have the conscious, they have the deep understanding of the masculine and the deep celebration in themselves before they go outward of the feminine.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest kind of difficulties for a lot of men, I've found, especially when you're younger. There's this fear of, if I connect to that feminine, then I'm going to be seen as less masculine. And then that just starts this downward spiral of denying what is intrinsically within them. And to get men to actually integrate and own that we all have it within us. And it's actually a really beautiful part of being a man is our ability to tap in and to be vulnerable and to be, to tune into that feminine side.
Sure.
Like, to get the guys to be like, hey, dude, it's actually okay, and it'll make you even more powerful.
Yeah. That's the hurdle we all have and the hump we all have to get over. But it's happening, right? It's the 1,000 seed theory that we just keep planting these seeds and you never know which one's going to sprout and you never know what that sprouting is going to affect around it. And as you said earlier, it's younger and younger men are starting to get involved in this work. They look up at us and go, oh, wow, you guys realize that what you were taught isn't working. Cool. Let's not wait till we get to your age to figure it out. And I think that's the beauty of what's happening right now. And I get asked every day, what do we do about, like, how come you don't have a program for teenage boys or teenage young men? And finally, in the last 2 weeks, I was like, okay. I don't have kids. I don't spend a lot of time with young men, but the necessity is so clear because they are wading through a different sea of confusion than you and I had to. You know, for us, it was very binary. It was either like you're a hyper masculine or you're weak and you're less than. I think for the younger men, but we didn't have social media, right? So the young men are now just bombarded with all of these thousands of conflicting messages a day without a foundation, and oftentimes without a male mentor or a male role model who's saying, hey, guess what? You get to celebrate your entirety. There is nothing weak about the feminine. It's actually, here's the divine mind fuck. It's going to be what you draw on to create your greatest power. Now imagine if that was the conversation around dinner tables at 13, 14, 15. I think that's how we shift culture. It's starting with us. Like, it's starting with guys our age. I'm in my 40s and know so many men who have gone, yeah, it isn't working. And I've checked all the boxes, right? I did all the hyper-masculine stuff. I have the cars, I have the wife, I have the house, I have the kids who don't talk to me, I have the addiction, I have the marriage that's about to fall apart. And wow, I did everything I was supposed to do. Oh my God, there's this emptiness in me that needs to get addressed. And there's no amount of vehicles, dollars, pussy, sex, houses, stuff that's going to fill that. Okay, no one told me this. I was actually taught the opposite. All right, let me now seek on my own. And now there are so many options for people to find that I have a lot of faith right now. And yes, it's gonna start with the younger men.
Yeah, to get into the schools and to plant those seeds of a better way or a different way, rather than trying to fix men once they're broken. Just to allow, to see what is a healthier version.
For sure.
Yeah. What would you like to be known for?
Just being a part of the shift in this culture. I don't want to say like I'm the guy who shifted it, because there's so many other amazing men who have their unique flavor that's shifting their ecosystem of men. I just want to be a part of the conversation. I want to be known as he was in the mix. He was one of many who helped shift the way culture was going. And man, could he write. That's that guy could throw some words around. Yeah.
I don't say this lightly, mate, but definitely your book is top 3 with Superior Man, and for me, probably King Warrior Magician Lover. Iron Johnny's up there, but your one just really resonated very deeply.
Appreciate that.
What would you love for men to know with every fiber of their being?
Oh man, that's such a beautiful question. I'd love them to know a couple things. One, that they have choice. that they have choice of how they present themselves in the world and how they exist and express themselves in the world. And that even though I'm presenting a single form or a hopefully wide form of masculinity, there are infinite forms of masculinity. There are infinite expressions of masculinity. And I want men to be proud of being men. I want them just to say, okay, some men are doing bad things in the world and some men have done bad things. A lot of men have. And I am not that man, but I am a man. And so I'm going to take pride in the fact that I have choice as to how I exist. And simply by being a representation of healthy masculinity, I will change the world. I'll say that's part one. And part two, this isn't my answer. But when I asked Michaela Boehm, what is the one thing you wish men knew? And she's like the uber mensch of, like, she's the genius of all of this. She stopped and sat and thought for a minute and said, I wish men realized how profoundly sensitive you were. And I would love for men to have permission to own our sensitivity. Right? And I spent time, a good half of my life in the hyper-masculine world, around fighters, around military guys, as bodyguarding, as CrossFit, you name it, like man. And yet, the power that I saw men lacking was their relationship with their sensitivity. And so I think it's both. Like, one, how profoundly powerful you are as a man and profoundly powerful your choices are, and the allowance and acceptance and full embracing of just how beautifully fucking sensitive you are.
Yeah, it's having that almost like the permission to feel fully everything. And not, I mean, we get taught, don't feel, don't be vulnerable, don't tap into that because you'll be less of a man. But to know that not only do you have permission, it's almost enlightening once you start to do that. Just to peel back that armor and just to express fully how you feel. So, brother.
It's a superpower, man. It's a superpower. Like, that's how I want to frame it. Like, hey, I was watching a jiu-jitsu video this morning, and there's a question. I think Jocko Willink was answering his son, saying, like, Dad, is there such thing as a superpower? And Jocko's going, yeah, jiu-jitsu is a superpower. And I also want to say, being in touch with sensitivity, being in touch with your inner world, being in touch with your feelings, and this is not a common conversation. That is a fucking superpower. It will let you, it's like taking the world from black and white to HD color. Like, who could rationally sit down in front of a young man and say, hey man, I think you just need to keep doing things black and white. I don't think you don't want to see color. You don't want to smell smells. You just, no, black and white's great. Trust me, because color's weakness. And we don't do that as men. They'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Take your 1972 TV and get the fuck out of here. I want to feel and see, like, that's a superpower. That's how I'd love to see this position, Nick, so that men go, wow, wait a minute, superpower. That's really interesting. Tell me more about this. But that's how I view it. And after awakening and feeling and being like, oh my God, there is so much happening in the world, in my room, in my body, in my relationship at all times. How dare someone deny me that for the first 40 years of my life? How dare the culture indoctrinate me into a being that didn't get to experience this? It's like at 40, someone came along and was like, hey, there are these things, they're made of paper. And when you open them, there's words written on them. And those words are going to take you to faraway places. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. But you guys told me when I was 7 that was weak. And then you punched me. And now you're telling me about this? Like, tell me about this. What are these books you speak of that only certain men get? Like, come on. This is how ridiculous it is. But also how tragic, right? And how fucking tragic. And so, yeah, I think I just went on a little rant. Coffee's kicking in.
That was the last question, bro. That was
Beautiful.
That was the 10.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Man, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure for me. Before you go, can you talk about what you have got offering, your programs and your book and your movement?
Sure. If you're listening to this, please read my book. It's called Man Uncivilized. You can get it on Audible. You can get the Kindle on Amazon. If you want the hard copy, which I hope you get a hold of, go to www.manuncivilized.com/the book. And I'm in the midst right now, Nick, of teaching a class called Kill the Nice Guy. And it's packed with men who are realizing that, wow, I am manipulative of the feminine. I am codependent with the feminine. I am manipulative and codependent with the universe. And that has cost me a life of authenticity. Mm-hmm. And as you know, from running any course, it's like I had an expectation of where this would go and how it would be. And now 2 weeks in, my mind is just blown of how these guys are showing up and the benefit they're getting just from, you said, just from the permission to look in the mirror and say, I've got you. I've got your back. I have abandoned you and I'm sorry. And I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to be more influenced by the good opinion of other people than I am going to be influenced by my heart. And if I stop the course tonight at the 2-week mark, 90% of these guys would go live radically different lives just from that. And so if that's something you guys, anyone listening to this is interested in, please go to the same website, manuncivilized.com/kill the nice guy and dive into that course. I think it should be, I'm biased, but I think it should be required of every college freshman or, before you graduate high school, you, as a guy, you got to learn that you were probably taught many things that aren't true. And you're living from that place, and there is a whole nother way of being. So yeah, hit my website. I'd love for you guys to follow me on Instagram. I'm at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm. As you know, I have a dysfunctional relationship with social media, so I'll probably be on there at 5 o'clock in the morning, pretending that I'm not, and will answer your questions.
I'll put all information in the notes, but if you haven't read his book yet, honestly, my top 3 men's books are just the way it is so easily digestible, and it just breaks it down into very easily digestible pieces, and it is just fucking profound. And I truly mean that, brother.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
So thanks again for joining us, mate. And
my pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your
day.
Cheers. Take care, Nick.